Many of us who are here wish those sanctions
Богдан Роланд. Слава Україні! Героям слава! Смерть ворогам!
Specialists who can analyze how effective those sanctions are have sort of given their verdict after 3 years of those
Слава ЗСУ!
being introduced. And the general agreement
Мочи хряков сегодня.
between the legal brains is that the efficacy of these sanctions is an equivalent of 3 out of 10. So there's a lot of potential to ramp them up, to make them much stricter, to look where are the loopholes and why are those loopholes not closed quickly. Because it just beggars belief that suddenly the country of Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan is buying 1,200% more of British Land Rover cars. How come suddenly Tajiks and Kyrgyz discovered how good are the Range Rovers and Land Rovers? No, it's definitely a scheme of going around the sanctions, and those luxury vehicles end up in Russia, in the hands of the mega rich Russians. So these sort of schemes must be closed, and the fact is that there are enough officers in different ministries around Europe to make this happen. When there is a will to close those loopholes, it's done. The fact is we have to push as civil society for the bureaucrats to act, because the decisions are made by the heads of state to introduce those sanctions. The implementation of them is in the hands of the mid-range bureaucrats, and that's why sometimes, you know, some bureaucrats in some ministries say, okay, but we can't do this or that, and it ends up that although sanctions are there on paper, they are not really working. This government of this country in the UK, they are making it much tougher, and one of the ways we can see it is that the measures against so-called shadow fleet of tankers which were transporting Russian oil and Russian gas to places like India or to places like China under the flags of convenience of little-known countries in Central America with little or no insurance, and actually endangering the whole maritime traffic, because usually the crews are, you know, not well paid. They are from the countries where the training or the maritime training is not very good. And actually a clear example, maybe that's not the case of sabotage, but what happens when you have a dodgy crew under the dodgy flag doing the business in the seas is just the disaster which happened a couple of days ago. And we know already that the captain of the ship which caused the disaster against the American tanker, the captain was Russian. So my suggestion is that the sanctions have to be not just applied, but supervision of sanctions and their efficacy has to be increased, because it's just not good enough if we, the democratic West, adopt these sanctions and then Russians and those who want to do business with them, they just found the loophole after loophole after loophole. So it's a bit of a whack-a-mole game, but it has to be done if we want to deprive Russian state machine from its money, which is actually sort of the the fuel for the whole war machine of Russia. So more sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia.
More sanctions on Russia!
And just finally to say, we are hearing a lot of noises about maybe one part of the deal between Washington and Moscow, who are looking for a rapprochement, will be that sanctions might be lifted by the USA. What I would like to urge the government of this country and all the European Union governments is keep the sanctions pressure. Yes, USA can take off its sanctions. Let's say there are some Russian frozen assets in Washington, but that's incomparable with the amount of money which is held in Europe, in Brussels and London. So sanctions must be kept against the Putin's regime as long as that regime is active. Doesn't matter there is some ceasefire or not. When there is a final settlement and when the reparations are agreed and when Ukraine puts its signature, what it gets from the aggressor for the war crimes committed and who goes to The Hague for the war crimes committed. Maybe at that point in distant future we can talk about closing this chapter of sanctions, but otherwise Russia should be one of the most heavily sanctioned places in the world for years to come. Slava Ukraini!
All right, we'll be back after a short musical break. Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим славним захисникам і захисницям тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Russia is a terrorist state!
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 I can barely hear you. Russia is a terrorist state!
Russia is a terrorist
Russia! No business with Russia!
No business with Russia!
No business with Russia!
No business with Russia!
No business with Russia!
No business with Russia!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian oil!
More sanctions on Russia!
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 Stop Russia! Stop this war!
Stop Russia! Stop the 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 war!
All right, I think my voice has warmed up a little bit. Now, just getting back to the song that we just heard, I love this song, and I just remembered the first time when I heard it. It was at the Ukrainian restaurant in London. We were there at the wine tasting wines from Ukrainian Koblivo. It was an absolutely great occasion, and I was there with a great friend of mine. His name is Chris O'Connor. Chris, it was his birthday was actually last week. His birthday was on 7th of March. March 7th was his birthday, and we fondly remembered him on that day with other volunteers around the club. Chris was born on March 7, 1940. 1942, apologies, 1942. So, in March of 2022, he turned 80. He turned 80, and on his 80th birthday, he put on his scarlets. He was a pensioner, a military pensioner at Chelsea Hospital. They wear you can see them around the town. They wear scarlets all the time. So he put on scarlets and went to Ukrainian embassy and told them, well, how can I help? He just turned 80. Well, those guys didn't know what to do with him, so they sent him to the social club, the Ukrainian club, and that's how we met. We met on his 80th birthday. Well, I didn't really know what to do with him, but he wasn't walking too well, was using a walking stick, but he said that he had a driver license, and we were short of drivers. So we started using him to drive around. Over the next 2 years, I probably spent, if you add it together, I have spent 4 or 5 months worth of time with Chris in the vehicle, going around London, going around the UK, collecting humanitarian aid, delivering humanitarian aid, driving to protests, doing lots of things. Besides helping us with driving, Chris went to Ukraine. He went to Ukraine 4 times. Remember, he was 80. Chris went to Ukraine 4 times. He went as far as Chernihiv. He went to Russian-Ukrainian border. He rode a tank. He did what he could to promote Ukraine, to make sure that people hear about Ukraine, to make sure that people support Ukraine. His name is Chris O'Connor. Chris was 80 years old. I didn't know at the time, and he did hide it very well. I didn't learn about it until 2 years later, that he had a serious lung conditions. But he, instead of staying home put, instead of taking it easy, trying to prolong his life, he decided to live it to fullest and dedicate his strength to whatever is left of it, to the just cause of Ukraine. He started organizing a concert with a very famous opera singer, which would invite a lot of famous musicians, which would be attended by royal family, at least some of royal family, and his dream was to invite President Zelensky to the concert. So that he hasn't accomplished that dream yet, but we're still working on it. Unfortunately, last year, Chris succumbed to his illness. He's no longer with us. But every time I hear this song, I remember him. 7th of March has become my personal holiday. I remember that time that we spent with Chris in the vehicle. I remember days when I was worried sick about him being in the middle of Ukraine without medical assistance. But nonetheless, he kept on going. And he showed that even when you think you don't have strength, even when you have not much strength left, there is still a lot of things that you can accomplish if you put your mind to it. Chris is not the only friend whom we lost over the last 3 years. There were lots of other friends, in particular another friend of ours, Peter Fouché. He was originally from South Africa. He was British. He went to Ukraine on a humanitarian mission. He started with building a hospital. Then he continued with delivering aid to remote villages in Chernihiv region. Then after seeing what Russia has done to our people, he couldn't stand it any longer. He joined fight against Russians. He joined Ukrainian military. Unfortunately, last year in June, he didn't come back from a special operation. Luckily, his group came back just with some wounded, but unfortunately, Peter was killed. He gave his life for Ukraine. The thing about Peter was a strong believer in God. And my impression was that he believed in Ukraine even more than he believed in God. He was ready and willing to give everything for it, and he gave his life. So, I'd like to take this moment and to remember our friends who gave their lives to save our country. To remember all our soldiers who stood in the line of fire and ultimately perished so we can continue to live. To all civilians, women, men, children, elderly, who lost their lives to this Russian filth which doesn't know where to stop. I'd like for us to observe a minute of silence to remember lives lost. Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! 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 Нашим славним захисникам і захисницям тричі! Слава! 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 Russia is a terrorist state! Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian oil!
No business with Russia!
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 More sanctions on 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 Russia!
Because Russia is a terrorist state!
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 Yes, we have to remember our friends and people who are gone, but we have to continue living. And we have to continue living to be worth the memory of those who perished. And living is not going to be easy. It is extremely difficult to live in the world, fate of which depends on two delusional people. One delusional individual with a homicidal tendencies, with a genocidal tendencies, and another one which is an egomania, which confuses himself with God. And we have to play it smart. Ukraine has to play it smart to survive. The rest of the world suffers as well, but Ukraine at the moment is in the toughest spot. Over the last couple of weeks, all of us anxiously were reading the news. We were reading the news about the U-turn that United States seemingly have taken on Ukraine. We were reading in the news that the United States are talking to Russia without letting Ukraine know. We were reading in the news about Americans stopping sharing intelligence information with Ukraine. We were reading in the news about pause in delivery of United States military aid to Ukraine. We were reading in the news that United States have stopped servicing F-16s which were delivered to Ukraine by other nations. There were a lot of bad press over the last couple of weeks, which with the highest point, the deepest point, the meeting in the Oval Office, which went terribly wrong. Whether it was set up on purpose or it just happened sporadically, it doesn't really matter. What happened, happened, and we had to deal with it. Ukraine has to survive. That's why Ukraine had to turn diplomacy to the highest notch to figure out the situation, to work out situation with the United States. And as we know, yesterday there was a negotiation between Ukraine and the United States, between two sides in Saudi Arabia, about getting back on track, about potential peace agreement. Well, diplomacy means you have to sell something which you do not have to obtain from the counterpart what you need and to prove to them that it's in their best interest. And Ukrainian delegation this time around did just that. Ukrainian delegation had to go in and prove to the United States that we are committed to the peace like no one else. We did. Ukraine had to go into the negotiations and agree to a reasonable deal on the ceasefire without taking any Russian conditions, and we did. Ukraine had to go in and convince the United States that, yeah, we still want to sign the the agreement for metals, and we did. In response, military intelligence sharing agreement has been restored. We started receiving it, has been confirmed by both sides. As a result, military aid started flowing again, was confirmed by both sides, and this evening it was confirmed by French border customs that the flow of the aid has resumed. So, I want to say thank you to the people, to the diplomats, our diplomats and foreign diplomats who put a lot of effort in this to happen. And here I'd like to mention Great Britain as one of the stout Ukrainian supporters. Great Britain sent their top diplomat to Ukraine to prepare Ukrainian side for negotiations with the United States. It was obvious when our guys go in unprepared, something like that Oval Office incident might happen, and we simply cannot afford it. We greatly appreciate help from the Great Britain. Not only they sent their diplomats in, they also did a lot of communication with their American counterparts to convince them that Ukraine is a fair player, that no one else wants peace as much as Ukraine, but that peace has to come under peace. It's not just ceasefire, it has to be lasting peace with the security guarantees. And in this agreement yesterday, what was the messages which were communicated to Americans, which they received, is that if we go for 30-day ceasefire, it has to be with agreement from Russia. Russia has to agree to it, and it cannot be one-sided. It has to be both-sided. We also delivered the message that any ceasefire has to be followed up by exchange of war prisoners. We need to get our people back. We need to get back the kids which were kidnapped by Russia and brought to Russian Federation. We need not security guarantee, but we need some sort of observers who would ensure that the ceasefire is holding. And again, we made it all dependent on Russia's will. As Mark Rubio put it, ball is now in the Russian court. It's a great time for Russia to show their true face and say no to this deal, at which point of time Americans have to realize that they have to get more strict on Russia, and instead of talking to them about lifting sanctions, actually implement harsher sanctions on Russia. More sanctions on Russia! More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia!
More sanctions on Russia!
Because Russia is a terrorist state!
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 Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian gas!
Stop buying Russian oil!
Stop buying Russian oil!
More sanctions on Russia!
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 Stop Russia! Stop the war!
Stop Russia! Stop the war!
Stop Russia! Russia, stop the war!
Stop 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 Russia, stop the war!
And coming back to Europe, European Union, European countries who have been living on peace dividends of over the last 80 years, they finally realizing that the world which was created back then is falling apart. Just thanks to two delusional individuals, the world order, which was created after World War II, seemed to be vanishing right before our own eyes. And Europe is far from being ready. They were too reliant on peace dividends. They were too reliant on the power of the United States economy. They were too reliant on the United States military, to the extent that they lost their military capability. And they are waking up, realizing that they are living next door to a genocidal maniac who doesn't know where to stop, and that they have to deal with it without, potentially without the United States. As Valery Zaluzhny put it at Chatham House, it might be that NATO will not exist in its current form relatively soon. Europe started looking around. Europe started allocating, they were allocated about 600 to 700 billion euros in subsidies and in direct financing to finance military industry. And they cannot do it. They cannot build their secure Europe. They cannot ensure security of Europe without strong Ukrainian army, without strong Ukrainian support. Ukrainian army right now is the strongest in Europe. A lot of European countries know about that. And a lot of European countries understood that from the day one. Baltic republics, Poland, but there were, of course, other countries which opposed it, and they think they can appease Russia and live with it. To name one, Hungary. Now, there were plenty, the other countries were on the fence. France, Germany were on the fence. Great Britain was the leader of the free world when it came to the war in Ukraine in 2022. Now, France is trying to take the lead as well. After a change of government in Germany, Germany is turning around and starting being a little bit more drastic in their measures to support Ukraine. Will it be enough to replace U.S. capabilities in Ukraine? If U.S. fades away, no, it won't be. Because even though financially it might be possible, there are simply some things which Europe does not have, which can be sourced only from the United States, for example, ATACMS missiles and Patriot missiles. Only United States or through United States from South Korea that we can get it. Therefore, there is room for diplomacy. We need to walk the line. We need to walk the line and to keep United States engaged. At the same time, Europe has to build capabilities, has to be able to defend itself without relying on external help. And Ukraine has to be an integral part of it. Stop Russia! Stop the war!
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 Support Ukraine! Save Europe!
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 Support Ukraine! Protect world!
Support Ukraine, protect world.
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 And an interesting piece of information I came across today. Even during all of these issues with the United States startups which are working on drone technologies are contracting Ukrainian drone manufacturers to create drone manufacturing capabilities in the United States. The United States has been trying to create their own drone program for a while. A lot of startups invested millions and billions of dollars to create drones which would be relatively inexpensive and that would do the job. And they would be relatively small. What ended up happening, they created a bunch of expensive drones which didn't fly pretty well. What they say that then, after the start of 2022, drone technology in Ukraine started picking up dramatically. And within short span of time, with short on resources, short on technology, Ukraine managed to create drones which work. Not only they fly over the various terrain in different weather conditions, and they also fly on the front lines where there is electronic defense mechanism which American drones could not do. And they are tens of times cheaper than what you Americans were manufacturing. Therefore, Ukrainian firms are trying to contract Ukrainian firms to expand drone manufacturing capabilities in the United States. As it stands, United States, the huge, prosperous, richest nation in the world, can produce over 200,000 drones a year. Last year, Ukraine, in the war conditions, with being short on money, being bombarded all the time, produced over 2 million drones. 2 million, and it's not only small drones. Those drones worked on the front lines, and some of them were flying over 1,000 kilometers to hit targets deeply in Russia. So Ukraine has a lot to offer. Ukraine is becoming the drone capital of the world. Unfortunately, Ukraine is paying a very heavy price for this privilege. But if we were to trade, if we were to make a deal with the United States, we have a lot that we can offer. Stop Russia! Stop the war!
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 And for 3 years we've been coming here. We're coming here 3 times a week. We used to come here 3 times a week. Now we're coming here twice a week. On Wednesday it's 6 to 8, and on Sunday 3 to 5. And all this time I'm looking up. I'm looking up across the street, and what do I see? I see Ukrainian flags on British official buildings. And this shows us that this nation will never, ever give up on us, will never accept that Ukraine is defeated, and will be standing next to us, rain or shine. And that we can rely on this nation as we relied in the past. And this is one of our staunchest allies and best supporters. Therefore, I'd like to say thank you to this great country. Thank you, Britain!
Thank you, Britain.
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 And we will be back after a short musical break.
Пам'ятаєш, ти мама Сандра, полями виноградними росли спину, а їх патерях розрив Ялта, якісь спогади, шкода, що так було давно. А шум моря, це моя мантра, тепер складно дивитись на гори в кіно. Знаю, будемо в Криму завтра, але вірю в майбутнє, вид на море. Жовто-блакитний стяг наших серцях, я знаю, ми стоїмо, хоч і шрами на серцях. І знаю точно, що не стане час, братами мирно в колі разом крикнемо за нас. Доки себе я на гляді йду, слухай мою правду. Ми за спиною ЗСУ, знаю точно скоро разом заспіваємо в Криму. Доки йдемо на кинджал, козак на мечах, близько весни оскал. Наша практика, наша тактика, це кожний клаптик, де ти матюком факти практика. Горить Москва, коцак, відчуй українські оскали, доки в головах пропаганда. Українські дрони зайняли позиції на фланги. Жовто-блакитний стяг наших серцях, я знаю, ми стоїмо, хоч і шрами на серцях. Знаю точно, що настане час, братами мирно в колі разом крикнемо за нас. І скільки горя в тих очах, що бачили брехню. Зайдемо в Крим, візьмем своєї, наші нас там ждуть. Не зупинити кляки на зов українську люд. І з ненавистю хімаси за прапор наш гуртують. Кожному ССО доживе ЗСУ, ми скакуємо за життя. Дехто це все може вже і не за життям, але ми віримо в перемогу, йдемо до кінця. Жовто-блакитний стяг наших серцях, я знаю, ми стоїмо, хоч і шрами на серцях. Знаю точно, що настане час, братами мирно в колі разом крикнемо за нас.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим славним захисникам і захисницям тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Today, well, let's place it with numbers. 218. 218. That's 218 days back. Ukraine entered Russian Kursk region. This was the first time since World War II when foreign troops entered Russia. And Ukraine has taken over a lot of territory in Kursk region. And has held it so far for 218 days. What would Ukraine do such a thing? For the biggest objective of going into Kursk was to take pressure off the eastern Ukraine. As you remember, back then was time when Bakhmut fell, when Avdiivka was fallen, and when Russia was planning to enter Sumy region. Ukraine had to do something inventive, something which hasn't been done before in order to stave Russia off. And we did. We did. Russia was forced to relocate almost 100,000 troops to Kursk region. They had to withdraw. They did withdraw a lot of troops from the east, but they did withdraw a lot of troops from south. And troops which they were recruiting, instead of sending them to the eastern Ukraine, where situation was dire, they were sending them to Kursk. They went to the extent that they have contracted North Korean troops to come and fight for them because they couldn't do anything with Ukrainians in Kursk region. About 20,000 North Korean troops came and started fighting Russian war for them. 218 days, Ukrainian defenders were defending their positions in Kursk region. Over the last month, Russia relocated another 15,000 troops there. They relocated their top drone battalions there. They relocated their navy, десантные войска. Paratroopers there. They relocated a lot of elite detachments there. In the end, when the Americans stopped sharing intelligence with the Ukrainians, I think we were caught a little bit blindsided. We couldn't trace all the troop movements. And Russians, actually North Koreans, managed to cut deep in our logistics support, in our logistics. Therefore, Ukraine cannot deliver needed support, ammunition and vehicles to Kursk region anymore. And it looks like Ukraine is slowly withdrawing, at least partially, from that region, giving back Russian territory to them. However, it's not a loss. The mission was accomplished. We managed to save Russia in the east, to take off pressure from the east and south. We just visually confirmed we have 500 destroyed armored vehicles in Kursk region. It's only visually confirmed. I think that there are more than that. And that's not counting non-military vehicles. But it's not and a number of Russian troops which were killed there is over 50,000. Korean troops suffered heavy losses, at least 3,000 to 5,000, I'd say. So we did well in Kursk region. We held it for 218 days. We're still holding it. We're not retreating yet. But it looks like it would be the best. It is a better option to save Ukrainian lives. And Ukrainian lives is something that we cannot replace. Armored vehicle can be made anew. Drone, we can manufacture a new one. We can procure arms, we can procure ammo. But people are indispensable. People cannot be replaced. And each life, we have to fight for each life. Therefore, even if we withdraw from Kursk region to save lives of our defenders, that will be the right thing to do. Yes, Kursk region was important from negotiation standpoint because it was, as Trump puts it, a cord in Ukrainian hands, putting us in a stronger position during negotiations. But the main point of Kursk operation, of stalling Russian advance in the east, was accomplished. Second objective, destroying as much of Russian military capabilities, was achieved. So, job is well done. And I thank every single one defender who went there and fought there. We need many more of these offensive operations, successful offensive operations as it was demonstrated 218 days ago, in order to put Russian beast down. And we will. Because Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is the terrorist state.
Russia is a 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 terrorist state.
And as our friend Yuri likes to say, Russia is not Ukrainian problem. Russia is a world problem. And here's another number for you, 105. 105 days of protest after scandalous elections in Georgia. 105 days Georgians have been taken to the streets to protest against falsification of elections, against Georgian Dream Party taking a pro-Russian course, withdrawing from negotiations with EU, and they are being severely oppressed. Georgian Dream should change their name to Russian Dream, because that's what they are. They are financed by Ivanishvili, who used to be president, who is totally pro-Russian. They are applying same techniques as Russia did to put down any opposition, and they are employing physically Russian assets, and by assets I mean Russian fighters to put down the protest, to put an end to the protest, to put the provocations up, to beat up protesters, to beat up political activists. It's all Russia. So as you see, Russia is not Ukrainian problem. Here's another example, Romania. Romania just finally banned pro-Russian candidate from running. Pro-Russian candidate, which seemingly won election 3 months ago, I believe it's 3 months. But after investigation, they uncovered that he used Russian money to support TikTok campaign, illegal TikTok campaign, which he could have held at the time of elections. And therefore, the Supreme Court of Romania canceled the results and said the elections will be held again in a few months. And now, Georgescu cannot run. Again, Russian influence. As you see, Russia is not only Ukrainian problem. Russia is a world problem. Russia is a world problem.
Russia is a world problem.
Russia is world's problem.
Russia is the world's problem.
Russia is this world's problem.
Russia is the world's problem.
Russia is this world's problem.
Russia is the world's problem.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 То текст уже по кругу идет. Гасло слава Україні. Ви зганьбили назавжди. Господь посилує.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
Сработали преследования на
Stop
улице.
Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
More sanctions on Russia.
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 And again, one more thing which we do remember, we don't bring it up very often, but we should, and we do try, is the question of our prisoners of war. Prisoners of war. We always remember people, our fallen heroes, but there are heroes of Ukraine who are still alive and who are suffering in Russian prisons. Russia did not call this war a war. They call it special military operation. Therefore, by Russian standards, there are no prisoners of war since there is no war. However, our heroes who have been held by Russia undergo their torture. They are regularly beaten. They are electrocuted, deprived of food, deprived of sleep. Russians are doing everything humanly possible in terms of inhumane treatment to break their spirits. When we see people, the pictures which Zelensky took to Washington during that unfortunate meeting was the pictures of our prisoners of war who came back. Those were comparative pictures of our guys before the war, before the Russian prison, and after. And those pictures were unbelievable. Trump didn't like them. That's probably one of the things which triggered him at the time. But such is reality. Therefore, we should demand, and part of this ceasefire, we should demand that the prisoner of war exchange, all for all. Free our heroes!
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 And Ukraine will prevail. Now, I think our time is coming to the end. Just a reminder, we'll be here on Sunday, 3 to 5. So I'd love to see you. It will be a pleasure to see you here again. And we will end our rally as usual with our beautiful Ukrainian anthem.
Окей.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануєм і ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам! Усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад все!
Нашим славним захисникам і захисницям тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Thank you. See you on Sunday.
Я думаю, що ти зупинися в місці.
Я побачив дивності, барикади у вогні, і нас зупинить нас війна. Україна в нас одна. 4:30 ранку я вже на ногах. Я не сплю з того року, бо мені зриває дах. Їдуть бойові машини, ми їм проколем шини. Танки з поля украдем, запалає все вогневе. А то всіх вітаєм, ворогів не підпускаєм. У обоймі є патрон, час писать новий закон. Моє питання, я не можу відповісти, я лишу тобі послання, не клади на сподівання. Кого є питання? Я побачив бізнесі, барикади у вогні, і не зупинить нас війна. Україна в нас одна. Я одіну свою казку, зачитаю отак казку. Візьму проти автомат, не відчути звук гармат. І збирається вся родина, хоч кругом лиха година, хоч кругом лиха система, це для нас же не проблема. Та лунають гарні тости, розбирати всі блокпости. Закипіла рідна кров, сука, це запалка сол. Закипіла рідна кров. Я побачив дивності, барикади у вогні, і не зупинить нас війна. Україна в нас одна. Я одіну свою казку, зачитаю отак казку. Візьму в руки автомат, не відчути звук гармат. Маремо не сон, ми відбили наш Херсон. Про нас слухи вже кругом, організован ми опор. Наші всі одна дорога, і задача супорога. Навіть зараз у Берліні кажуть разом слава Україні.
If you're not scary, can you say something in Italian, in Italian language, in my live stream?
In Italia?
Yeah, Italian. Italiano. Okay. Something.
Saluti a tutti, slava Ucraini. Io chiaramente credo che questa sia una battaglia per la libertà di tutti quanti, non soltanto dell'Ucraina, non soltanto, ma anche della Russia stessa in definitiva, perché c'è una battaglia anche per difendere la verità, nel senso che la Russia non sta vincendo la guerra, non sta vincendo assolutamente la guerra, sta dando una prova militare molto più debole rispetto a quelle a cui eravamo abituati dall'Unione Sovietica, per esempio. Cioè, ricordo che nella seconda guerra mondiale in 2 anni si passò da Stalingrado a Berlino. Adesso in 3 anni stanno cercando di prendere tutto il Donbass e non l'hanno ancora preso tutto. Quindi insomma, in definitiva la Russia sta dando una prova molto negativa dal punto di vista militare, però è fortissima invece nelle fake news. Nelle fake news la Russia è fortissima, e forse quando si parla di riarmare l'Europa, allora, a parte il fatto che insomma si parla di 800 miliardi di euro, una cifra chiaramente spaventosa, credo che se si prendessero i 300 miliardi di euro degli oligarchi russi bloccati nelle varie banche in giro per il mondo, già questi servirebbero a finanziare una parte di questa cifra enorme, ma soprattutto credo che si potrebbe spendere molto meno con un'operazione invece di guerra sul piano dell'informazione. C'è una guerra sul piano dell'informazione che smonti queste fake news e smonti anche tutta la campagna d'odio che la Russia sta facendo, che insomma il regime russo sta facendo attraverso una rete fittissima di diciamo attivisti che alcuni naturalmente volontari, alcuni probabilmente sicuramente anche pagati, i quali poi stanno facendo dei prodotti di manipolazione mediatica che sono tarati a seconda dei diversi target, per così dire, cioè nel senso che si va in Europa a sostenere delle posizioni anti-immigrazione sostanzialmente razziste, sostanzialmente neofasciste, poi dall'altra parte nei confronti dell'elettorato di sinistra si dice noi abbiamo sconfitto il nazismo, poi dall'altra parte vanno in paesi che sono stati colonie britanniche o francesi o altro a dire siamo anticolonialisti, quindi per ciascuno cercano di sostenere. La prova è quella per esempio sul conflitto tra Israele e la Palestina, per cui noi abbiamo il più ricco cittadino israeliano, uno dei più ricchi cittadini israeliani, che è tale Roman Abramovich, no? Uomo di fiducia di Vladimir Putin, e dall'altra parte poi la gente però pensa la Russia sostiene la Palestina, ma come la sostiene concretamente? Come la sostiene? In nessun modo. Un saluto.
And Sarkozy, it's big, very big.
Macron.
Yeah, Sarkozy, 20 years ago, big friend to Putin. Yeah, you remember Sarkozy?
Yes. Beh,
Mafia.
Yes. anche, no, beh, insomma, voglio dire, tanti leader sono stati amici, a cominciare appunto da Silvio Berlusconi che tutti i nemici, tutti quelli che lo attaccavano in Italia, diceva che volevano fare le inchieste su di lui e altro, e lui diceva sono tutti comunisti, anche delle persone che insomma voglio dire erano state sempre anticomuniste, gli dava immediatamente l'etichetta del comunista a chiunque lo attaccava. Poi è andato da Lukashenko in Bielorussia e gli ha detto è un grande presidente. Strano, no? Poi era grande amico di Putin, che comunque insomma vabbè, è stato comunque un ufficiale del KGB, quindi insomma è stato in quel sistema. Quindi chiaramente voglio dire Putin ha avuto un grande... Del resto bisogna dire che quello che sta facendo oggi Trump in qualche modo è diciamo in forma molto più rozza, molto più insomma nello stile poi di Trump, quello che cercava già di fare Berlusconi circa 20 anni fa a Pratica di Mare, dove riuscì a mettere assieme Bush e Putin per un tentativo di accordo, di alleanza appunto tra la Russia e gli Stati Uniti. Quindi voglio dire, in realtà ci sono già dei precedenti. Saluti, slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini, see you next time. Italiano.
Where you
YouTube.
YouTube and where?
Do you have here your phone?
Yes. No, but okay. Yes, my phone is.
I can show you.
You're still alive.
Yeah. I'm off.